My sister-in-law demanded $10,000 for the humiliation of being arrested in my foyer. She thought the spare key meant she owned the place. They forgot the house was mine, and so was the new ADT system. I hung up, pulled the camera logs, and called my attorney. My name is Emery Davis. I am 34 years old, and I am the Chief Financial Officer at North Star Ledger Works. I am good at my job because I understand a fundamental truth: every number tells a story. And you must protect your assets. This house was my asset, not our asset. Mine, the deed, the mortgage, the title, all meticulously filed under my name. It sat on a quiet, tree-lined street in a suburb that prided itself on its tranquility. It was my sanctuary, built from long nights, brutal market analyses, and a discipline my husband, Joe, often called obsessive. I called it security. That was why I had just finalized the upgrade with ADT. It was not a basic package. This was the premium tier. 5 high-definition cameras covering all approaches, including the driveway and the back porch, new generation sensors on every window and door, and a master control panel tied to a single, 32-character alphanumeric security code that existed in only one place: my head. I had spent the weekend testing it, walking the perimeter, feeling the solid, digital click of the system engaging. It was the 21st century equivalent of a moat. I was in my office, a glass-walled box overlooking the trading floor at North Star, reviewing third-quarter projections when my phone vibrated on the desk. It was not a call. It was a push notification from the ADT app. The text was sterile, precise, and utterly terrifying. Intrusion detected. Unlocked with duplicate key. My blood did not run cold. It evaporated. Intrusion was one thing. Unlocked with duplicate key was another entirely. It was a contradiction, a violation of the system's logic. I had personally collected and logged all copies from the builder. There were 2. One was on my keyring. The other was in the fireproof safe in my home office. My fingers were shaking, but my training took over. I tapped the notification. The app opened, the blue logo spinning for a half-second before the main dashboard loaded. The red banner at the top confirmed the status: alarm. I hit the live view button for Camera 1 Foyer. The feed stuttered, then sharpened into crystal clarity, and there they were, my sister-in-law, Grace, and her husband, Owen. They were not creeping. They were not masked. They were strolling into my house as if they were returning from grabbing the mail. Grace was pointing at the vaulted ceiling, her mouth moving, probably commenting on the light fixture I'd spent 2 months sourcing. Owen, lagging behind, was dragging a scuffed rolling suitcase. Then the sound kicked in through my phone's speaker, the system's internal warning. A calm, female, digitized voice. System armed. Please enter your disarm code. A high-pitched, insistent beep punctuated the silence every 2 seconds, the 30-second grace period. I watched Owen drop the suitcase and swagger to the keypad by the door. He looked at it with contempt, then started pressing buttons, randomly, 4 digits, beep, 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 error. He tried again, harder this time, as if brute force would work. 6 digits, error. Grace had stopped admiring the ceiling. Owen. What's the code? Joe said you had the code. I'm trying. Damn it, he muttered. He punched in another random sequence. You have 10 seconds remaining, the voice warned. Owen hit the panel with an open palm. Stupid thing. He did not have the code. Of course he did not. Because I had the code. The 30 seconds expired. The world ended. Even through the tiny, tinny speaker of my phone, the sound was catastrophic. It was not a bell. It was a physical assault. A shrieking, oscillating siren designed to inflict pain. Firing at over 100 decibels. I saw Grace clap her hands over her ears and actually stumble back, her face a mask of stupid shock. Owen kicked the wall, then the 2-way audio engaged. The operator's voice, amplified, boomed through my foyer. This is ADT monitoring. An alarm has been triggered at this address. Please state your security phrase immediately. Grace was screaming something at Owen, but the siren drowned her out. Owen, bless his idiotic heart, actually tried to answer. He stepped toward the panel, shouting, "It's fine. We're family. Joe, let us in." That is not the correct security phrase. The operator's voice cut through his, sharp as glass. "We have registered a keypad mismatch. Police have been notified and are being dispatched to your location." "No! Wait!" Grace shrieked, finally understanding. "Don't call the police. We're supposed to be here." But the operator was gone. The siren just kept screaming. My heart was a hummingbird in my chest, but my mind was a block of ice. I swiped left on the app, switching cameras. Camera 4 driveway. The sight that greeted me turned my blood to sludge. It was not just their sedan. Parked on the street, half blocking my driveway, was a U-Haul, a small one, maybe 15 feet. Its rear door was rolled up, and it was full. I could see the edge of a stained mattress, stacks of bulging cardboard boxes, a tangled mess of furniture wrapped in dirty blankets. They were not visiting. They were not crashing. This was a planned occupation. That feeling, like thick, cold taffy being pulled in my throat, was absolute dread. This was not a misunderstanding. This was a conspiracy. The duplicate key, the timing knowing I was at work, the U-Haul, parked and ready. They had come to move in. They had come to stay, banking on the fact that it would be too awkward, too complicated, too mean for me to throw them out once they were settled. They had miscalculated. My work phone rang on the desk, the one I used for business lines. I looked at the caller ID, local dispatch. I let it ring twice, took one deep, shuddering breath, and answered. My voice pure CFO. "This is Emery Davis, ma'am. This is the dispatcher with the county police. We have received an alarm from your security provider, ADT, for the address at..." He recited my address. "The report indicates an unauthorized entry. Can you confirm if anyone is permitted to be at your residence at this time?" I looked at the live feed. Grace and Owen were now huddled by the front door, the siren still blaring, trapped between the alarm and the impending police. "Officer," I said, my voice dangerously calm. "I am Emery Davis. I am the sole owner of that property. I can see the intruders on my security camera right now. No one, I repeat, no one has my permission to be in that house. I request that you handle this situation according to the law. Understood, ma'am. Officers are approximately 3 minutes out. Please stay on the line if you can." "I will," I said. As I held the line, a vibration came from the breast pocket of my vest. My personal cell. I pulled it out, my thumb numb. A new text message from Joe, my husband, who was supposed to be in Chicago for a client meeting. The text read, "Hey, just letting you know I told Grace and Owen they could crash at the new place for a while. Their situation is tough and we have the space. Key is under the mat. Should be fine. Talk tonight. Key is under the mat, not a duplicate key. The emergency key, the one I had explicitly told him was for fire or medical crisis only." I looked at the phone in my left hand, the dispatcher still murmuring logistics. I looked at the phone in my right hand, my husband's casual betrayal glowing on the screen. I looked at the monitor of my computer, where the live feed showed Grace pounding on the front door, trying to get out, apparently forgetting that a door unlocked with a key can be unlocked from the inside. The police were coming. The U-Haul was waiting, and my husband had just handed the keys to my fortress to the barbarians. I understood with chilling, absolute clarity. The threat was not the 2 idiots trapped in my foyer. The real threat was the man I had married. The call was coming from inside the house. I terminated the call with the dispatcher, confirming I would be at the house within the hour to meet the responding officers and file a formal report. My hands were perfectly steady. The adrenaline had cooled into something hard and useful. I dialed Joe. He answered on the second ring, his voice breezy, the manufactured cheerfulness of a man avoiding a difficult subject. "Hey, Em, just landed in Chicago. Did you see my text? Hope it's all good?" They were just in a tight spot. "You know how it is. Joe," I said. My voice was quiet. It was the voice I used at the quarterly board meetings right before I announced we had missed projections. "The police are at my house." The silence that followed was heavy, charged with his realization. "Why is everyone okay?" Did something happen? Grace and Owen are fine. They are currently detained on my front lawn. They used the key you left under the mat to enter my house, which triggered the ADT system I finalized this weekend. The system you were not aware of, the ADT. His voice jumped, cracking with indignation. Jesus, Emery, why didn't you tell me? You're supposed to clear these things. We're married. This house, Joe, is not a we, it is a me. The deed is in my name. The mortgage is in my name. The utilities are in my name. And the 32-character security code is in my head. You do not have the authority to clear my security protocols, nor do you have the authority to give away access to my property. It's just paperwork, he snapped, the facade of the easygoing husband dissolving. You're calling the cops on my family. My God. Emery, what is wrong with you? We have 5 bedrooms. They have nowhere to go. You are being dramatic. Dramatic, I repeated. The word was flat. Clinical. They arrived with a 15-foot U-Haul. Joe, this was not a visit. This was an occupation. One that you sanctioned. I'm supposed to support my family. That's what people do. You're supposed to support me. My brother needed help, and you were supposed to protect me and my assets. Instead, you gave away the key to my house. You undermined my security. You made me vulnerable. This is unbelievable, he spat, his voice thick with anger. He was furious, not because he was wrong, in a way I doubt he even understood, but because he had been caught. Because his lazy, generous gesture had blown up. You have humiliated them. You have humiliated me. You need to fix this. Emery, call off the police. Go over there and apologize to them. No. What? No, I said again, enunciating every consonant. I will not be apologizing. I will be pressing charges. I pressed the red icon on the screen, severing the connection. The silence in my high-rise office was profound. Fix it. He had not asked me to understand. He had not apologized for his monumental breach of trust. He had given me an order. The anger was cold now, precise. Joe was not the architect of this. He was the tool. He was weak, easily swayed by the narrative of familial obligation, a narrative he never applied to me or my needs. I knew exactly who held the blueprints. I dialed his mother, Diane. She picked up on the first ring, her voice syrupy with false brightness. Emery, I was just about to call you. Joe told me you were going to be so gracious and help Grace and Owen get settled. It is just wonderful of you. A true blessing. The coordination was breathtaking. The sheer, layered audacity of it. They had planned this. They had discussed it. They had congratulated themselves on their cleverness, on how they would manipulate my husband into forcing my hand. Diane, I said, and my voice was sharp enough to cut glass. I am calling to inform you that Grace and Owen are currently in police custody. They have been detained for trespassing at my property, the property you encouraged them to invade. There was a sharp, strangled gasp. The syrup vanished. Trespassing. Don't be ridiculous. That's your home. Joe said it was fine. I told them Joe would handle you. Family has to help family. Emery, you know the trouble they've had. There it was. The mantra. The absolution clause. The phrase that was meant to erase all boundaries, all laws, all respect. Family has to help family. Let me be very clear, I said, standing and walking to the window, looking down at the traffic crawling 19 floors below. Helping does not involve packing a moving van and attempting to seize possession of a house that does not belong to you. You used my husband, and you used this tired concept of family to try and steal from me. Steal, how dare you? Her voice rose to a shriek. You have so much. Emery. More than you deserve, those beautiful empty rooms, while my son and his wife are suffering. When you married Joe, you married all of us. You are selfish. You are tearing this family apart over nothing. You are mistaken, I said softly. This family tore itself apart when it decided my property rights were negotiable. You have confirmed your role in planning this. Thank you. Diane. That was all I needed. I disconnected the call while she was still sputtering. My phone immediately buzzed with an incoming call, a local number I did not recognize. I glanced at the clock on my desk. 9:12 a.m. I activated my call recording app, a necessity in my line of work, and answered, "Hello, you, bitch." It was Grace. The sound was distorted by hysterical, theatrical sobbing. "I cannot believe you did this to us. We were in handcuffs. Handcuffs. The neighbors saw us. Owen is... This is trauma. Emery. This is actual trauma." I waited. In a negotiation. Silence is a weapon. I let her sob into the void. "The police said we can't go back," she wailed. "They took our pictures. Owen is going to lose his job over this. You've ruined us, all because we needed a little help. You were trespassing," I stated, my voice devoid of inflection. "We were not," she screamed. "Joe invited us." "Your husband. He said it was arranged. He said you were fine with it. Joe is not the owner of the property. You entered a secured residence without the owner's permission. That is the legal definition of trespassing." The crying stopped. It did not taper off. It ceased, as if a switch had been flipped. When her voice returned, it was cold, reptilian. "You are going to pay for this." "Pay for what?" "Grace, the U-Haul you rented. You humiliated me," she hissed. "You treated me like a criminal. I am going to sue you. I am going to sue you for emotional distress, for police harassment, for everything. This is going to cost you, unless you want to make this right." I waited. The hook was set. $10,000, she said. The number landed with a dull thud. $10,000 for the humiliation and the pain you caused, and you call off the cops, and you let us move in. We won't even take the master bedroom. We'll take the guest wing. That's a fair compromise. It was beautiful, clean, a perfect textbook case of civil extortion. This was the moment the marriage ended. This was the moment Emery Davis, the wife, the daughter-in-law, clocked out. And Emery Davis, the CFO, the strategist, the asset manager, took her seat. "Grace," I said, and my voice was suddenly warm, almost gentle. "Thank you for clarifying your position so clearly. I'm afraid I cannot discuss this matter with you any further." "What, why not?" "You know you're in the wrong. You know you owe us because this is now a legal matter," I said, the warmth freezing back into steel. "And you have just provided me with a clear, actionable threat. From this moment forward, you can direct all your correspondence, including your demand for $10,000, to my attorney, my attorney. I'm not. We're family. Emery. You can't do this. You stopped being family when you loaded the moving truck. Goodbye, Grace." I hung up. For a full minute, I did not move. I stared at the skyline. The pain was sharp, a physical ache behind my sternum. It was the pain of betrayal, deep and absolute. But beneath it was something else, a cold, bright clarity. They had given me a gift. They had mistaken my quiet, disciplined nature for weakness. They had assumed family was a trump card that negated contracts, deeds, and the law. They thought I would buckle to emotional pressure. I chose the law. I chose the numbers. I chose the facts. I turned to my computer. My actions became methodical. A checklist. First, I opened a new document. I logged the time of Joe's text. I logged the time of the police dispatch call. I logged the call with Diane, transcribing her admission. I told them Joe would handle you. I logged the call with Grace. Time 9:12 a.m. Demand $10,000. Threat. Sue for emotional distress. I saved the audio file of her call, uploading it to my secure personal cloud. Second, I opened the ADT app. The alarm event was still flashing. I navigated to the system log. It was all there. A perfect, immutable timeline. 8:54 a.m. side door unlocked. User duplicate key. 8:55 a.m. alarm. Triggered. Location foyer panel. 8:55 a.m. keypad. Mismatch. Code entered 1234. 8:55 a.m. keypad. Mismatch. Code entered 654321. 8:56 a.m. Two-way audio engaged. 8:56 a.m. Security phrase. Mismatch. Response, we're family. 8:56 a.m. Police notified. I took screenshots of every single line. I saved them to the new folder. Third, I went back to the live camera feeds. The police were there. 2 cruisers. The siren was off. Grace and Owen were on my lawn, looking pathetic. And the U-Haul. I switched to the driveway camera. I zoomed in. I took a high-resolution screenshot of the U-Haul. Its bay open. My address clear in the background. Proof of intent. This was not a visit. This was a siege. I was no longer in a family dispute. I was compiling a legal case. The pain was still there. But it was productive now. It was fuel. They had tried to take my sanctuary, my asset. They had used my husband as their key. I closed the document. I looked at the folder I had created on my desktop. I named it litigation. I was withdrawing from the emotional battlefield. I would not text. I would not call. I would not scream. I would let the files do the talking. I did not go home. I did not go to the garage. I walked out of my office, bypassed the main elevators, and took the executive lift to the 24th floor. My best friend's name is Laya Sharifi. We had navigated the shark tank of business school together, 2 women in a sea of identical navy suits, where I found clarity in balance sheets. Laya found poetry in contract law. She was now the head of internal compliance for a global private equity firm. Her job, essentially, was to build legal fortresses and to find the hairline cracks in the fortresses of others. She was not a family lawyer. She was a corporate killer. She was exactly who I needed. I walked past her assistant and straight into her office. She was on a conference call, her pen tapping a thick binder. She looked up, registered the look on my face, and held up one finger to the speakerphone. "Greg, I have an emergent crisis. Reschedule the call. Now." She hung up before he could reply. "War room," she said, grabbing a legal pad. We moved to the small, soundproof conference room she kept for sensitive discussions. I did not cry. I did not rage. I was a CFO delivering a catastrophic quarterly report. I laid out the facts, chronologically, the ADT upgrade, the duplicate key alert, the U-Haul, the live feed, the police report, the text from Joe, the confirmation of conspiracy from Diane. Then, I placed my phone on the table. I played the recording of Grace. We listened in silence as her voice, tinny and reptilian, demanded $10,000, and the guest wing. When it finished, Leia did not offer sympathy. She did not say, "I'm sorry." She looked at the audio file's waveform on my screen and gave a low whistle. "Well, that's just beautiful." She stood and walked to the whiteboard, her entire demeanor shifting. This was not Leia, my friend. This was Leia, the strategist. "Here is what we have," she said, uncapping a black marker. 1 criminal trespass. That is the entry. Clean. The police report supports this. 2 conspiracy to commit trespass. That is the coordination between your husband, his mother, and the trespassers. Diane's admission. I told them Joe would handle you. Is your cornerstone for that. 3 attempted civil extortion. She tapped the whiteboard. Grace's audio file. She named a price $10,000 in exchange for not pursuing a frivolous lawsuit, and as a condition of her illegal occupation, it is a pristine textbook case. She turned to me. "They think this is a family spat. Emery, they think they can bully you. We are going to treat this as a hostile takeover attempt. You are an entity. Your home is your primary asset. We will defend it as such." She began to write a numbered list. "Here is the protocol. You will follow it exactly. First, you are driving directly from here to the police station. You have the incident number. You are now filing a formal written statement as the victim. You will provide them with the screenshot of the U-Haul, the ADT log, and a copy of the audio file of Grace's demand. We want that $10,000 demand attached to the criminal trespass report. It establishes motive beyond needing a place to stay." "Okay," I said, my mind already organizing the tasks. "Second, you will file a public records request for all body cam footage from the responding officers. You will do this today. I want to see and hear exactly what Grace and Owen said when they were detained. I want their Joe invited us excuse on official government recording. It will be invaluable when we depose them. Got it. Third, litigation hold. A tight, grim smile touched her lips. I am drafting the letters as we speak. They will go out via email and certified mail by 4 p.m. today. One to Grace, one to Owen, one to Diane, and one to your husband, Joe. My breath hitched. To Joe. Laya's eyes were hard. Especially to Joe. He is a hostile party. Emery. He is materially involved in the conspiracy to deprive you of your property. This notice legally obligates them to preserve every single text message, email, voice note, and social media post related to this matter. If they delete their little family takedown group chat, it's spoliation of evidence. It's a sanctionable offense. This letter stops them cold and makes them realize this is not a game, she continued. Fourth, ADT. You are not calling customer service. You are calling their legal compliance department. You will provide the police report number. You will request a certified copy of the complete system log for the day. Every button press, every mismatch alert. You will also request a full user list for your account, demonstrating you are the sole administrator. And I want a sworn affidavit from their technical team explaining what unlocked with duplicate key means. We prove the key was not a figment of the system's imagination. Fifth, ownership. She underlined the word. Go home. Go to your fireproof safe. Pull the original warranty deed, the mortgage agreement, and your closing documents. Scan every single page. I want an unassailable mountain of paper proving your sole, unencumbered ownership. And the locks, I said. Yes, you will call a bonded locksmith today. You will have every external lock on that house rekeyed, all cylinders replaced. You will get a detailed, itemized invoice. This is not just for security. It's to demonstrate in court that you took immediate, reasonable, and expensive steps to mitigate the threat they created. Okay, I said. My pulse was steady. This was a checklist. I was good at checklists. Sixth, the timeline. The one you built is excellent. We are going to make it indestructible. We will cross-reference the ADT log with your call log and the police report. Minute by minute, 8:54 a.m. Intrusion, 9:01 a.m. Alarm, 9:06 a.m. Text from Joe, 9:12 a.m. Extortion call from Grace. We will paint a picture of coordination so clear a judge cannot ignore it. The U-Haul, I added. Exactly, the U-Haul. I'll have my paralegal track down the rental company from the logo in your photo. We will subpoena the rental agreement. I will bet my bonus it was rented by Owen, paid for by Diane, and picked up yesterday. We will prove premeditation. Seventh, she said, her voice softening slightly. You are filing for a civil no trespass order against Grace and Owen. Immediately. It's a warning. If they set foot on your property line, they will be arrested. No discussion. And my new rule. The most important one, Laya said, turning from the board. From this moment, you are a black hole. You do not speak to them. You do not text them. You do not answer their calls. Joe flies home. He can talk to the empty house. Your only response, if you are cornered, is a single sentence. All communications must be directed to my legal counsel. You will email me a summary of any attempted contact. Your emotional silence will be their poison. They want you to scream. They want you to negotiate. You will give them nothing but my letterhead. I nodded. One last thing. The keys. I am drafting a formal demand letter, Laya said. It will require all parties, Joe, Grace, Owen, and Diane, to return any and all copies of keys to your property, including the one Joe left under the mat. They have 24 hours to deliver them to my office. We are legally revoking any and all implied permission they thought they had. I stood up. The fog of betrayal had cleared. I was not a victim. I was a plaintiff. Thank you, Laya. Go, she said. Execute the plan. I executed. I spent the next 3 hours in a state of cold, efficient fury. I went to the police station. I sat with a detective who specialized in property crimes. His bored expression vanished when I played Grace's audio file. Ma'am, he said, rewinding the tape. That elevates things. That is attempted extortion. He took my written statement and personally walked my request for the body cam footage to the records department. I filed the no trespass order at the civil court clerk's office. From my car, I called ADT's legal compliance department. I used my full corporate title. I provided the police report number. I was instantly escalated. They confirmed the certified logs and user lists would be compiled and sent to Laya's office. I called a 24-hour locksmith and scheduled an emergency rekeying for 6 p.m. Then, I drove home. The house was quiet. It felt violated. I went to my office, opened the safe, and began the methodical process of scanning my ownership, the deed, the mortgage, the title insurance. Each scan was a reclamation. At 5:45 p.m., my personal phone, which had been buzzing nonstop with blocked calls from Joe and Diane, suddenly fell silent. I checked my email. Leia had sent me a copy. The litigation hold notices and key demands had been delivered. The first shot was fired. At precisely 6 p.m., the locksmith's van pulled up. As he worked, drilling out the old cylinders, I walked to the ADT panel. I went into the user settings. I found Joe's guest code. I highlighted it. I pressed delete. I updated the primary emergency contacts. I removed Joe. I removed Diane. I added Laya. I created a new email inbox. Rule: any message from Joe, Diane, Grace, or Owen was to be automatically forwarded to Laya and moved to a folder labeled Evidence. My personal inbox would remain clean. I set my phone to auto-reject their numbers. The locksmith finished. He handed me a single new key. "You're all secure, ma'am." I locked the new deadbolt. The sound was solid. Final. I was in a fortress again, but this time, I was the only one with the key. The locksmith finished his work just after 6 p.m. He handed me the 2 new keys, their edges sharp and clean. "You're all secure now, ma'am." "Thank you," I said, handing him the cash for the emergency call-out fee, adding a substantial $50 tip. He deserved it. He handed me the itemized invoice, which I immediately filed in the new folder I had brought home. I stood in my foyer and listened to his van pull away. The silence of the house was absolute. I engaged the new deadbolt. The thunk of the bolt sliding into the reinforced frame was heavy, solid, and final. It was a sound of absolute defense. My next actions were precise, a digital lockdown to match the physical one. I walked to the ADT panel, its green, ready-to-arm light glowing innocently. I entered my master administrative code, not the simple 4-digit one I had given Joe, but my own 32-character alphanumeric password. I accessed the Users and Permissions menu. First, the emergency contact list. This was the list of people the monitoring station would call, in order, before dispatching police. It read 1. Emery Davis, 2. Joe Davis, 3. Diane Davis. My finger hovered over Joe's name. This felt different from the litigation hold. That was a legal necessity. This was an excision. This was the system asking me, "Who do you trust when the building is on fire?" And the answer was not him. He was the one who had propped the fire escape door open. I pressed delete. His name vanished. I did the same for Diane. The list now contained only my name. I pressed add new. I entered Laya Sharifi's name, her cell number, and her office line. I designated her as the primary contact, even above myself. If the alarm went off, she would be the first to get the call. She would handle it. Next, I went to the Guest Codes App Access menu. There it was. Joe Davis, spare key user. His access level was limited, but it still allowed him to arm and disarm the system from his phone, to see the camera feeds, to get notifications. He had probably watched Grace and Owen walk in. He might have even watched the police arrive. I revoked his permission. The app logged him out immediately. I revoked the permissions for every other shared guest, erasing any lingering digital keys I might have handed out in a happier time. The log was now pristine. 1 administrator Emery Davis, 1 user Emery Davis. The digital drawbridge was up. My phone buzzed on the granite countertop. An unknown number. I declined it. It buzzed again. I powered the device off, then on again. I went into the settings. I blocked Grace's number. I blocked Owen's. I blocked Diane's. I had already set the filter to auto-archive all of Joe's emails and texts to the evidence folder Laya had access to. The silence in the house, now unbroken by digital intrusions, was vast. It was here, in this vacuum, that the reality of my situation finally settled, not as white-hot anger, but as a deep, profound cold. I was completely and utterly alone. The man I had breakfast with, the man I had planned a future with, had chosen them. He had made a calculated decision to betray my trust, violate my home, and then had the audacity to be angry at me for protecting myself. A sharp, sudden ache of loneliness hit me, so powerful it almost made me double over. This was the cost. This was the price of security. But as I stood there, breathing through the pain, another feeling surfaced, rising to meet the loneliness. It was a cold, sharp, exhilarating clarity. I was free. There was no more ambiguity. There were no more family obligations to navigate, no more gaslighting about my boundaries, no more swallowing my discomfort to make Joe feel like a good son and brother. They had tried to take my house. They had failed, and in doing so, they had given me the one thing I had not realized I was missing: an exit. The loneliness was real, but the freedom was intoxicating. I would not be a victim in my own home. I would be its sole defender. I went to my home office. This was my sanctuary, the one room they had not breached. I turned on every light. My gaze fell on the large whiteboard I used for complex financial modeling. I picked up an eraser and wiped clean the projections for the next fiscal year. I uncapped a black marker. This was not a home office anymore. This was a war room. I divided the board into 3 columns: evidence secured, evidence pending, actions completed. In the first column, I wrote deed mortgage sole ownership, ADT log certified copy, Grace audio extortion, U-Haul photo intent, Diane call transcript conspiracy. In the second, police body cam requested, ADT affidavit pending, U-Haul rental subpoena Laya, key demand response pending. In the third, locks rekeyed, ADT digital access revoked, ADT contacts updated Laya primary, police report filed, no trespass order filed, litigation hold sent, comms blacked out. I stepped back. It was a beautiful, terrifying, and logical display of my new life. I pulled a thick, 3-ring binder from the shelf. I printed the scanned copies of the deed and mortgage. I printed the high-resolution screenshot of the U-Haul, its bay open and waiting. I printed the ADT log, highlighting the duplicate key and mismatch entries. I printed the word-for-word transcript Laya's paralegal had already typed up from Grace's threatening call. I slid each page into a clear plastic sleeve. I made tabs: ownership, breach, intent, extortion. Conspiracy. This binder was the truth. It was my armor. My next call was to my insurance provider. I got an agent on the line. Hello? I am calling to update my homeowner's policy. Effective immediately. I have just filed a police report for criminal trespass and attempted unauthorized occupation of my residence. The agent was silent for a beat. I see, Ms. Davis. That is certainly unusual. The perpetrators are known to me, which is why I am calling, I continued, my voice all business. I need to add a specific rider covering vandalism and malicious mischief, even by individuals known to me who are not on the policy. I also want to add the maximum available coverage for legal fees related to property disputes and personal liability, an umbrella policy, whatever you have. Yes, ma'am. We can certainly do that. I paid the prorated amount on my credit card. Another layer of steel clicked into place. Next, the Homeowners Association. My community was strict. I pulled up the email for the HOA president, a retired executive named Henderson. I drafted the email with surgical care. Subject Security Incident Trespass Report. 418, Willow Creek. Dear Mr. Henderson, for community records, I am formally logging a significant security incident that occurred at my property today. An unauthorized entry was attempted by 2 individuals, Grace and Owen, last name. The police were dispatched. A criminal report was filed, SIL, and a civil no trespass order is in process. They arrived with a U-Haul van photo attached with the clear intent of an unauthorized move-in, which is a direct violation of community bylaws regarding new residents. I have already rekeyed and secured the property. However, I request that community security be instructed to deny entry to these individuals, by name, if they appear at the gate. They have no lease, no invitation, and no legal right to this property. Thank you. Emery Davis. I hit send. I had just cut off their last avenue of approach. They could not sneak in. They could not claim to be guests. The entire neighborhood was now, officially, on notice. I thought about the video footage. ADT stored it, but I wanted my own copy, an off-site, redundant backup. I went into the ADT app settings and found the option to link a cloud storage account. I created a new, encrypted cloud drive, one not linked to any of my shared accounts with Joe. I set the system to automatically sync and save all new video events, creating a separate, untouchable archive of evidence. My last stop was the utility room in the basement. The fiber optic line came in here, connecting to the router. The main ADT hub was in a locked metal box on the wall. It was the brain of the whole system. I looked at it. Vulnerable. I went back upstairs, retrieved my label maker, and returned. I printed a single, bold label. I stuck it directly on the metal hub. Property of Emery Davis. No family access without written consent. All activity is logged. Tampering will be prosecuted. It was a small, petty act, but it was a declaration, a line drawn in plastic and adhesive. I returned to my office. The binder sat on the desk. The whiteboard was filled. The house was silent, locked, and digitally sealed. I sat in my chair, and the exhaustion of the day finally washed over me. The adrenaline was gone, leaving only a dull, throbbing ache. This was my castle. I had pulled up the drawbridge, secured the gates, and manned the walls, but it was still a siege, and I was alone inside. I closed my eyes. I focused on my breathing, a technique I had learned for high-stress shareholder meetings. Inhale for 4 seconds, hold for 7, exhale for 8. I was not a wife fighting with her in-laws. I was a chief financial officer defending a critical asset. The pain was data. The loneliness was a temporary operational cost. The objective was to win. Emotional discipline. I told myself that was my armor. I would not be hysterical. I would not be rash. I would be methodical. I would be relentless. I would be the calm, cold eye of the storm I was about to unleash. I opened my eyes and looked at the whiteboard, the final item on my checklist. Phase 1 complete. Await contact. Respond only. Via counsel. I was ready. He must have taken the first flight back from Chicago. He did not call from the airport. He did not text. He simply appeared. It was just after 9 p.m. I was in my home office, reviewing the certified ADT logs that Laya's paralegal had overnighted, when the new video doorbell chimed, not the security alarm, but the simple, polite bell of a guest. I opened the app on my phone. There he was, magnified by the fisheye lens. Joe. His face was blotchy and red, his travel suit rumpled. He looked less like my husband and more like a disgruntled petitioner. He jabbed the bell again, a long, angry press. I did not buzz him in. I walked down the stairs, the thick binder of evidence heavy in my right hand. I stood in the foyer, watching his distorted image on the ADT panel. He was vibrating with rage. I unlatched the new my deadbolt, and opened the door only as far as the heavy-duty security chain would allow. The 4-inch gap was filled with his fury. "Emery, open this damn door! Now!" he hissed, pushing against it. The chain held fast, straining the metal. "You are not a resident here." "Joe," I said, my voice perfectly level, carrying clearly through the opening, "you forfeited that privilege when you gave away the key. I got your lawyer's letter." He spat, his voice low and dangerous. "The litigation hold. Are you insane? You're treating me like a criminal, You put my entire family on a no trespass list. They are criminals. I said simply, they trespassed. You aided and abetted them. Laya's letter was a formality. This, I said, holding up the thick binder so he could see its title. Litigation Davis is the reality. I am not talking to Leah. I am talking to my wife. You are going to let me in this house. We are going to fix this, and you are going to call off your attack dog. You owe my family an apology. He was still giving me orders, after everything. He was still standing on my porch, demanding I apologize for the wounds he had inflicted. The last fragile thread of our marriage snapped. You're right about one thing, I said softly. You won't be talking to Leah about this part. I closed the door, slid the chain free, and opened it fully. He started to storm in, a righteous gust of wind, but I stood my ground, my body blocking the entryway. You are not welcome in this house, Joe, but I will speak with you on the porch. Emery, it's 50 degrees out here. What is this theater? Then you should have brought a jacket. I stepped out onto the porch, pulling the heavy door closed behind me. It locked automatically with a solid click. I was now locked out with him, but my phone was in my pocket. I had the app. I had the code. I could get back in. He could not. He stared at me, his breath pluming in the cold night air. He was finally, completely off balance. This is the division of assets. Joe, I said, it starts right now. I opened the binder, tucked into the front pocket. Behind the tab labeled Ownership was a sheaf of papers. They were thick, filed copies, bearing the stamp of the county court. I pulled them out. What is that? He asked, eyeing the papers. More of your precious evidence. These are divorce papers, I said, a petition for dissolution of marriage. I placed them on top of the binder, the title clear under the porch light. I had them drawn up 2 years ago. Joe, after you loaned $10,000 from our joint savings to Owen without telling me, the $10,000 that was never repaid. I told myself back then, if you ever prioritized your family's greed over our shared security again, I would sign them. His face, already red, went pale. You didn't just prioritize them this time. Joe, you actively conspired with them to seize my personal, non-marital assets. You aided their attempt to invade my home. So I signed them. This morning. They were filed with the court at 2:17 p.m. A process server will be at your mother's house tomorrow. Divorce, he whispered. It was not a question. It was an admission of shock. You're divorcing me over a misunderstanding because I tried to help my family. There is no misunderstanding, I said, my voice hardening. The suppressed emotion of the last 48 hours finally bleeding into my words. This is a fundamental incompatibility. You see family as a blank check to violate boundaries, to commit theft, to ignore legal contracts. I see boundaries as the only thing that keeps civilized people from tearing each other apart. You see this house as a community asset to be parceled out. I see it as my asset, my security, which you used as a bargaining chip to appease your mother. I stepped closer. We have irreconcilable differences. Joe, the difference is respect. You have none for me, and I, as of today, have none for you. You will regret this, he whispered, his voice shaking. It was not sadness. It was pure, distilled rage. He was a cornered animal. You have no idea what you've just done. I will fight you. I will take this house. I will take half of everything you have. No, you won't, I said, my voice dropping to a clinical coldness. I tapped the binder. Because this isn't a he said, she said situation. This is a she has immutable digital evidence situation. This house is a premarital asset, purchased with my inheritance and my salary. You have never paid 1 cent toward the mortgage. The law is very clear. You have no claim. I continued. And as for half of everything, I imagine your share of the marital assets will be significantly reduced when I file my separate civil suit against you and your co-conspirators, for damages, for conspiracy to commit trespass, for the attempted extortion Grace so kindly recorded for me. Your legal exposure right now is massive. That's not. You can't sue me. I'm your husband. Are you a party to the text messages planning the move-in? I fired the questions like a prosecutor. Did you receive the email from your mother confirming the time? Did you give them the key? Knowing I was not informed, did you fail to stop them? Did you, in fact, order me to apologize to them after they were arrested? He just stared at me, his mouth opening and closing. He had no answers. He had only indignation. You think you're so smart, he finally managed to say, with your files and your cameras and your lawyers. You don't know anything about what family means. You're cold. You're a machine. The machine is what's protecting me. I said, while you were flying back from Chicago, I was busy. I began to tick off the list from the whiteboard in my mind. I have already separated our finances. The joint checking account was frozen at 3 p.m., pending legal review. Your name has been removed from my primary checking and savings accounts. The supplementary credit card I gave you was canceled this afternoon. The authorization you had on my brokerage account was revoked at 4:05 p.m. You did what he whispered. This, finally, was the blow that landed. The money. I changed my passwords. I continued relentlessly. iCloud, Google, all bank portals, the ADT system. Obviously, all are now secured with two-factor authentication that routes to my phone and Laya's. You have been excised. Joe, digitally and financially. He looked utterly broken. He leaned against the brick pillar of the porch, the fight gone, replaced by a dull, hollow shock. Your personal effects are in the living room, I said, my voice softening just a fraction. This was the last, hard part. I packed them myself. I made an inventory list. You can come in, retrieve your things, and sign the inventory sheet, verifying you have received them. You packed my things. The words were barely audible. Yes, I will give you 30 minutes. I will be present to supervise. I stepped back, unlocked the door with my app, and let him in. He walked past me, his shoulders slumped. He walked into the living room. It was all there, stacked neatly by the door. 3 suitcases, 2 banker's boxes, his tennis racket, his golf clubs. It was a pathetic, small pile. The sum total of his life within my walls. Supervise, he said, his voice thick. I pulled my phone from my pocket. I opened the camera app. I pressed record. The small red light glowed. I am recording this. Joe, for both our protection, to ensure there are no accusations of theft, damage, or violence, please review your items. He looked at the phone, then at the boxes. He seemed to shrink. The blustering, angry man on the porch was gone, replaced by this defeated, gray stranger. He walked to the boxes. He unzipped one suitcase, looked inside at his sweaters, and zipped it closed. It's all there, he mumbled. He picked up the inventory list from the coffee table and the pen I had left for him. He signed his name at the bottom without reading it. He gathered his things, his movements jerky and uncoordinated. He dragged the suitcases to the door. He didn't look at me. Joe, I said. He stopped, his back to me. Laya will be in touch with your new attorney tomorrow to discuss the next steps. I said, all future communication must go through her. He turned then and looked at me. His eyes were not sad. They were dead and cold. You'll regret this. Emery. You chose a house over a family. You'll be alone in here forever. He opened the door and pulled his suitcases out onto the porch. He left his golf clubs. I don't know if he forgot them or just could not carry them all. He left, pulling the door closed behind him. I did not watch him walk to his car. I stopped the recording. I saved the file to the cloud. Joe exit. Timestamp 9:23 p.m. I walked through the house. It was silent. His toiletries were gone from the bathroom. His shoes were gone from the closet. The indentation of his head was gone from the pillow on his side of the bed. The silence was deafening. It was the sound of my victory. It felt heavy. I went to the master bedroom. My master bedroom. I locked the door. I checked the ADT app on my phone. System armed stay. All sensors were active. All cameras were recording. I lay down on the bed, still in my work clothes. The sense of loneliness I had felt earlier returned, but it was different now. It was not a temporary feeling. It was a new state of being. It was the price of the house. The cost of the win. I slept. It was not a good sleep, but it was a deep one, the sleep of pure, profound exhaustion. For the first time in my marriage, I slept without one ear open, listening for the sound of someone else's needs. I was startled awake just after midnight. My phone, on the nightstand, was buzzing. A text message. It was not from Joe, or any number I knew. It was from a no-caller ID burner number. The message was 5 words. "We know you are alone." My blood turned to ice. I sat bolt upright, my heart hammering against my ribs. The silence of the house suddenly menacing. A second message came through, one right after the other. "We will be back." I stared at the screen, my breath catching in my throat. This was not Joe. This was Grace, or Owen, or Diane. This was a direct, anonymous threat, a violation of the legal orders. My training kicked in. My hands were shaking, but I did it. Screenshot. I emailed the images to Leah, to the evidence folder, and to the police detective I had spoken to, with the subject line, "Urgent violation of no contact order direct threat." I got out of bed. I turned on every light in the house. I looked at the ADT panel, its green armed light glowing. I was safe. I was secure, but I was also a target, and I was, as they had so correctly pointed out, completely alone. The war was not over. It had just entered a new, darker phase. I did not sleep for the rest of the night. The house, my fortress, suddenly felt like a glass box. I sat in my office, the whiteboard glowing under the desk lamp, and watched the live camera feeds on my monitor, the driveway, the front lawn, the back porch. Nothing moved but the wind in the trees. The anonymous threats, "We know you are alone. We will be back," had fundamentally altered the equation. This was no longer a property dispute. It was a psychological siege. At 1 a.m, my email pinged. It was the detective. "Ma'am, a patrol car will be making hourly drive-bys of your address. We are attempting to trace the burner number, but it is likely a dead end. Please remain secure and report any further contact." The next morning, Laya's office, which had been a defense center, became an intelligence hub. She had seen the threatening texts I forwarded. Her voice was pure ice. "They just handed us the intentional infliction of emotional distress claim on a silver platter. Emery, this is no longer just trespass. This is harassment. This is a pattern of terror. I'm putting my best paralegal on them. We are going to find out why they were so desperate, and we are going to bury them with it." It did not take long. When people are desperate, they are sloppy. Laya's paralegal, a woman named Sarah, who apparently subsisted on caffeine and righteous fury, was a grandmaster of public records. Grace and Owen were not just in a tight spot, they were in a financial death spiral. An eviction notice had been filed against them 3 weeks prior. They were 4 months delinquent on their apartment rent. A search of civil court records revealed 3 default judgments against Owen from major credit card companies, totaling over $30,000. His wages were already being garnished. They weren't looking for a guest room. "Emery," Leah explained over a secure call, her voice tight. "They were looking for a lifeboat. They were looking for a rent-free, utility-free, consequence-free existence, and they planned to have you subsidize it indefinitely." This financial desperation was the motive, but my mother-in-law, Diane, was the architect, Joe's new attorney. A fast-talking divorce lawyer Leah had already dismissed as a bottom feeder, had responded to our opening salvo. He had forwarded a small discovery packet, intending to prove that Joe had acted in good faith. Buried in the attachments was what they clearly believed was their trump card. It was a single page, scanned in blurry color. It was a piece of floral stationery, the kind Diane used. Written on it, in her looping, overly ornate handwriting, was a temporary residence agreement. It granted Owen and Grace full use of the secondary guest wing at my address. It cited the bonds of family and shared responsibility in times of hardship. It was signed, with a flourish, by Diane Davis, Grace, and Owen. It was dated 2 days before the intrusion. This, Leia said, and I could hear the smile in her voice, is legally worthless. It's like writing a permission slip for someone to borrow the Hope Diamond. Diane has no ownership, no authority, but as evidence it's priceless. It proves conspiracy. It proves premeditation. It proves this was a planned, coordinated effort. The handwritten agreement was damning, but the next item in the packet was the one that stopped my heart. It was an email. Grace, clearly nervous, had emailed Joe the night before the U-Haul arrived. Her message was short. "Joe, I'm scared. Are you positive Emery is okay with this? She's so particular about the new house. What if she gets home and says no? I don't want to be on the street." Joe's reply, sent from his phone at 11 p.m., was the text that would destroy him. It was the text Leia would one day project onto a screen in a courtroom. "Don't worry about Emery," he had written. "Just get in and get settled. It's easier to ask for forgiveness than permission. We have the space. She'll get over it. I'll handle her when I get back from Chicago. Just move in." "I'll handle her." I read the line 4 times. The blood drained from my face. He wasn't just placating his family. He was not a weak man caught in the middle. He was an active co-conspirator. He was managing me. He was positioning me as an obstacle, a problem to be handled after the fact. He had willingly sacrificed my home, my security, and my trust to make his own life easier. "This is it," I whispered to Leia over the phone. "This is everything," she replied. The evidence now formed a perfect interlocking chain. Leia's team had already subpoenaed the U-Haul records. Using the logo from my security camera screenshot, the contract was a thing of beauty. Rented by Owen, paid for with a credit card that matched the last 4 digits of one Leia found in Diane's name. The rental time, picked up at 5 p.m., the day before the intrusion. The rental type, a one-way trip, with the drop-off location listed as a U-Haul center less than 2 miles from my house. The return was scheduled for the next day. They had planned to be fully moved in. Their truck returned. Before I even got home from work, the final piece of the puzzle came from an unexpected place. A cousin of Joe's, a quiet woman who had attended our wedding, had been part of the extended Davis family group chat. She had apparently seen enough. After receiving Leia's litigation hold notice, which had been sent to all known family members, the cousin had a crisis of conscience. She forwarded Leia a complete, exported transcript of their conversations for the past 2 months. Reading it, I finally understood the depth of their entitlement, the casual malice they mistook for family values. Diane. "Emery's new house is a palace, far too big for just 2 people. It's frankly selfish." Grace. "She won't even let us visit unless we schedule it a week in advance. She treats it like a museum, not a home." Owen. "Joe says she has a huge quarterly bonus coming in. She won't even notice the utilities." Diane. "It is a family's duty to share its blessings. Emery doesn't understand that. She's too cold. We have to teach her what family really means." And then, the last message, sent from Grace's phone just after Joe's "I'll handle her" email. "It's a go. Joe gave the green light. We're moving in tomorrow. Emery's rich. She can spare a few rooms for a few years. Right? What's she going to do? Throw us out on the street once we're in. She's not that cruel." "This is the whole case," Leia said. We were in her conference room. The printouts spread across the gleaming mahogany table, the handwritten agreement, Joe's email, the U-Haul contract, the group chat transcript. They were not confused, Leia said, her voice a low, controlled fury. This was not a misunderstanding. This was not helping. This was a coordinated, hostile occupation. Their entire strategy, she said, tapping the group chat, was to create facts on the ground, a fait accompli. They believed that once their mattress was in your guest room, once their clothes were in your closet, you would be too socially embarrassed, too nice, to have them forcibly removed. They thought family was a magic word that would negate the law and force you to concede. They expected you to sigh, complain, and then ultimately surrender. She looked at me. They profoundly misjudged their target. Our counterplan is simple, she continued. We do not argue about help. We do not argue about family. We stick to the evidence. We prove intent. We prove conspiracy. We prove motive. This was an intentional act, planned for weeks, designed to deprive you of your property. Now, we moved from defense to offense. Let's lock down the extortion, Laya said. That audio file of Grace demanding $10,000 is our cornerstone. I'm sending it to a forensic audio lab. I want a certified voice identification confirming it's her. It's overkill, but I want them to have zero room to wiggle. We'll prove it was her, prove the timestamp, and prove it was a direct demand for money in exchange for not filing a frivolous lawsuit. Then, she addressed the midnight threats. They are panicking, and they are making mistakes, she said. She drafted a new, brutal document, a cease and desist letter. It was addressed personally to Grace, Owen, and Diane. It detailed the anonymous, threatening texts. It explicitly stated that these texts were being treated as extensions of their civil conspiracy and as criminal harassment. It warned them that any further contact, direct or anonymous, any mention of me on social media, any attempt to contact my colleagues, or any post, even a vague post about this situation, would result in an immediate petition for a permanent restraining order and a new criminal complaint for stalking. This isn't a request, Leia said, emailing it to their new lawyer. It's a leash. If Grace so much as posts a sad emoji on Facebook, she's violated it. She sent a copy of the cease and desist to the police detective, formally updating my file. The detective confirmed he was escalating the complaint. Finally, Leia turned to her monitor and began to draft the masterpiece, the full civil complaint, the one I would file against all of them. It was a beautiful, terrifying list of my damages. Count 1 criminal trespass, she said, her fingers flying across the keyboard. Against Grace and Owen, count 2 conspiracy to commit trespass, against all 4 of them, Grace, Owen, Diane, and your husband, Joe Davis. Count 3 attempted civil extortion, against Grace. We have the tape. We have the voice ID. And my personal favorite, she said, a small, predatory smile touching her lips. Count 4 intentional infliction of emotional distress, against all 4, the planning, the invasion, the extortion, and the subsequent midnight threats. We will argue this constitutes a deliberate pattern of behavior designed to cause you severe emotional harm. She looked up from her screen, her eyes bright. We are not just asking for legal fees and the cost of the locksmith. Emery, we are asking for punitive damages. We are going to make them understand, in the only language they seem to respect, that your signature on a deed is a line they can never, ever cross. A corporation is, in its own way, a small, enclosed ecosystem. It survives on information, but it thrives on gossip. The two are often confused. I had built my career at North Star Ledgerworks by being immaculate, precise, and emotionally neutral. My projections were accurate, my audits were flawless, and my personal life was a locked box. The box was now, apparently, public property. It started on a Tuesday, less than 24 hours after Joe had collected his things. It was not overt. It was a change in atmospheric pressure. It was the way a conversation in the break room would stop, mid-syllable, when I walked in to get my morning coffee. It was the sudden, intense interest my junior analysts had in their computer screens when I passed their desks. It was the look of profound, pitying curiosity from the receptionist. By 11 a.m., the first concerned colleague appeared at my office door. Mark, from the risk assessment team. He leaned against the doorframe, his voice lowered to a conspiratorial murmur. Emery, you doing okay? Heard you're going through a lot. I'm fine, Mark. The third quarter numbers are solid. No, I mean, at home, he said, shifting awkwardly. My cousin knows Joe's golfing buddy. He said Joe's family is in some kind of trouble, and you're suing them and kicking Joe out. The narrative was set. I was the cold, heartless CFO, the machine Joe had called me. I was the villain. My personal legal matters are private, Mark, I said, my voice polite but absolutely final. But I appreciate you checking in. He retreated, his curiosity unsatisfied, but the warning was clear. The firewall between my personal and professional life had not just been breached, it had been incinerated. Joe's family, having failed to take my house, was now launching a flanking maneuver against my reputation. This, I knew how to handle. This was a hostile PR campaign, and you do not ignore a PR crisis. You manage it. I did not call Leah. I did not text Joe. I picked up my office phone and scheduled a 30-minute urgent meeting with Victoria, our head of human resources. I walked into her office at 2 p.m. Victoria was a sharp, no-nonsense woman whose own career had been a masterclass in corporate survival. "Emery," she said, gesturing to a chair. "Your email was vague. What's this about a potential security and defamation issue?" I sat down. I did not slouch. I did not fidget. I placed my hands on the table. "Victoria, I am initiating divorce proceedings. I am also filing a civil suit against my husband's family for criminal trespass, conspiracy, and attempted extortion." Her eyebrows shot up. "Good Lord!" "This is, and should remain, a private legal matter," I continued, my voice steady. "However, it has become clear that my husband's family is engaging in a coordinated smear campaign. The rumors have already reached my team. I've been fielding questions about suing my family all morning. This is not just gossip. It is an attempt to damage my professional standing and personal credibility. It is defamation." "And the security aspect?" she asked, her pen now poised over a legal pad. "The night I served my husband, I received anonymous, direct threats to my person. 'We know you are alone. We will be back. I have filed a police report for harassment. I have a security detail conducting drive-bys of my home. My concern is that these individuals, who are clearly volatile, may attempt to contact me here, at my place of work, or worse, show up." Victoria's face hardened. This, she understood. A personal spat was an HR headache, a credible security threat, and a targeted defamation campaign against a C-suite executive was a corporate liability. "I am not asking HR to intervene in my personal life," I said. "I am formally notifying you, as my employer, that I am the target of a harassment campaign. I am providing you with this packet. It contains a summary of the facts, a copy of the police report I filed for the trespassing, and a copy of the harassment report. It does not contain the divorce petition. It does not contain the ugly details. It contains only the objective, legal facts." I pushed a thin, neatly labeled folder across her desk. "I am providing this so that if and when these rumors escalate, HR is in possession of the truth. I am doing my job, which is to protect the company from any and all liability associated with me. I am handling the legal and personal aspects of this crisis externally. My only request is that you log this incident, and that building security be provided with the names and photographs of the individuals I am filing against Grace, Owen, and Diane Davis." Victoria took the folder. She opened it and scanned the first page, a one-sheet summary Leah had drafted. Her eyes widened as she read the words, "attempted extortion," and U-Haul. "I see," she said, closing the folder. "This is comprehensive. I appreciate your proactivity. Emery, this is not gossip. This is a documented incident. I will handle it. Building security will be notified. And if any employee brings this up in a way that feels like harassment, you send them directly to me." "Thank you, Victoria," I said. I stood up. "And Emery," she said, stopping me at the door. "For what it's worth, good for you." I left her office. The burden of the whispers lifted. I had not complained. I had not been emotional. I had filed a report. I had created a paper trail. I had protected my corporate flank. I kept my head down for the rest of the week. My focus monastic. I dove into our quarterly models. I worked 12-hour days. I would not let them disrupt my performance. I operated with strategic, surgical silence. I did not engage. I did not defend myself in the break room. I did not correct the rumors. I simply worked. A few days later, my one true friend in the office, Sarah from marketing, slid into the chair opposite my desk, holding 2 coffees. "You're not going to believe the buzz," she said, pushing 1 cup toward me. "I'm sure I am," I said, not looking up from my spreadsheet. "Joe's been pulled from the new integrated systems project." My fingers stopped. I looked up. "What?" "It's all over the internal chats. He's still at the company, but they've sidelined him. The official reason is restructuring, but the rumor is that the client got wind of his chaotic personal situation, that's the quote, and expressed concern. They can't have a lead on a billion-dollar project who is, and I quote, embroiled in a domestic scandal involving extortion and police reports." My own report to HR. The facts I had provided had been disseminated, quietly, up the chain of command. Joe, by being named as a co-conspirator, had become a liability. His company was now doing to him exactly what I had done to him, protecting itself. There were consequences. I felt no joy. I felt no satisfaction. I felt only the cold, grim click of a gear falling into place. The other side, of course, was not as disciplined. My phone buzzed with a screenshot from Laia. Subject, "And so it begins." It was a public post from Grace's Facebook page. She hadn't been smart enough to block me. It was a masterpiece of passive aggression. "It's a truly heartbreaking thing when you see what money does to people." The post read, "Some people would rather have a big, empty house than a family that loves them. Praying for those who have forgotten that family is the most important asset of all. It's sad when people become so cold they'd rather call the police on their loved ones than open their hearts. Blessed family, over everything heartbroken." The comments were a chorus of sympathy. "Oh, honey, what happened?" "You are so right. Sending you love." "This is a direct violation of the cease and desist," I emailed Laia. "I know," she replied. "Give me 10 minutes. I refreshed Grace's page 10 minutes later. The post was gone. In its place, I was sure, was a searing notice from Laia to Grace's attorney, citing the post as a deliberate act of public libel and a violation of the harassment order, threatening immediate court sanctions. They had silenced her public-facing narrative, so she took it underground. The next day, 2 mutual friends women I had met at Joe's family Thanksgivings forwarded me a chain of text messages. Grace, furious that her post was taken down, had started a mass text. "You won't believe what that cold-hearted bitch Emery is doing. She's not just divorcing Joe. She's trying to have us all arrested. She lied to the police, and she's trying to take all of Joe's money and leave him with nothing. All because we needed a place to stay for a few weeks. She's evil. Please, don't believe anything you hear from her." I forwarded the screenshots to Laia. Add to the pile, intentional infliction of emotional distress, defamation. I was winning. On paper, I was winning. The evidence was a mountain. The legal strategy was flawless, but my body was in rebellion. The midnight threats had shattered my sleep. I was averaging, at best, 3 hours a night. I would jolt awake at any sound, the house settling, the ice maker, a car door down the street. I started having trouble breathing, a persistent, dull ache in my chest that felt like a band of steel. My left hand developed a slight, almost imperceptible tremor, one I could only see when I held it out. One afternoon, I was staring at a complex balance sheet, and the numbers, blurred, they would not resolve. I felt a wave of dizziness, a graying at the edges of my vision. I was not a machine. I was a human being under a prolonged, multi-front siege, and I was cracking. This was not acceptable. This was a data point that needed to be managed. I did not go to the emergency room. I did not take a sick day. I opened my private browser, and I did what any high-functioning executive does when they are failing. I outsourced the problem. I found the top-rated cognitive behavioral therapist in the city, one who specialized in trauma and high-stress professionals. I booked an appointment for the next day, paying the new patient retainer online. I sat in her quiet, plush office, a cup of herbal tea in my trembling hand. I did not cry. I laid out the situation with the same clinical precision I had used with Laya and Victoria. The intrusion, the U-Haul, the threats, the divorce, the smear campaign, the sleeplessness, the tremor. She listened, her expression unreadable. "Emery," she said, when I had finished, "you are experiencing a classic, acute stress response. Your body is in a state of hypervigilance. You are, in effect, being hunted. Your nervous system does not know the difference between a lawsuit and a saber-toothed tiger. It only knows threat." "I cannot afford to be weak right now," I said. "This is not weakness," she corrected me gently. "This is your system functioning exactly as it was designed. The problem is that the threat is not an event. It's a condition. You cannot run from it. So, we must manage it." She gave me a plan, a strategy, not for the lawsuit, but for myself. "Healthy boundaries," she said, "are not just for your house. They are for your mind. You have done the legal part. Now, the digital hygiene." Her advice was simple. I was to set up a Google alert for my own name and for Joe's, Grace's, and Owen's. "Do not go looking for them," she said. "Let the information come to you. Once a day, in a single email, you will spend 15 minutes reviewing it. Then, you are done. You do not check Facebook. You do not check Twitter. You are closing the door to their noise." She gave me breathing exercises for the anxiety, a strict sleep routine. "You must treat your self-care," she said, "with the same ruthless efficiency you are applying to your lawsuit. It is your armor." I left her office feeling lighter. I had a new checklist. I had a new asset manager. I went home. I set up the alerts. I put my phone on Do Not Disturb after 9 p.m. I made a new rule: I would not check the security cameras unless I received an actual alarm. Laya called me that evening. "Just checking in," she said. I told her about the therapist, about the anxiety. She was quiet for a moment. "Good," she said, her voice warm. "This is a marathon. Me, not a sprint. You have to protect your primary asset. She paused. "Remember," she said, her voice turning hard again. "Your reputation is an asset. Your honor is an asset. Your sanity is an asset. They are trying to bankrupt you on all three fronts. We will not let them. You just focus on breathing. I'll focus on the documents. Let the paper do the work. The paper doesn't get anxious. The paper doesn't need to sleep. The paper, Emery, is going to win." The discovery phase of a lawsuit is not a civilized exchange of information. It is a form of managed warfare. It is where you find the enemy's unexploded bombs, and if you are very good, you find the receipts that prove they bought them. Laya, having filed our comprehensive civil suit, was now entitled to demand answers. Their side, led by Joe's new, aggressive lawyer, was forced to respond. Their first move was a classic misdirection, an attempt to prove good faith. They submitted a new piece of evidence, one they clearly thought would exonerate them. It was a single, blurry printout of an email. "From you?" Leah said, sliding it across her conference room table. I picked it up. The sender was listed as Emery Davis. The recipient was Joe Davis. The timestamp was for 5:30 p.m., the day before the intrusion. The body of the email was sickeningly cheerful, and in a voice that was absolutely not mine. "Hey, love. Just confirming I'm totally fine with Grace and Owen staying for a bit. We've got the room. Tell them to make themselves at home. I'm sorry I've been so stressed. You were right. They're family and they need us. See you when you're back." I stared at it. "I never wrote this. I have never seen this. This is a fabrication." "I know," Leah said, a thin, predatory smile on her face. "They're stupid, Emery. They're profoundly stupid. They sent a printout. They are counting on us being as inept as they are. Does this from address look familiar?" I looked closer. "Sender Emery, Davis, NorthstarLedger.com. My blood went cold. My real email address was Emery, Davis, NorthstarLedgerworks.com. They had created a near-identical spoof domain. They're trying to prove I gave Joe written permission, I said. They just proved conspiracy to commit fraud, Leah countered. They gave us the rope. Now we pull it. Leah's response to their lawyer was immediate and brutal. She did not accuse them of fraud. She simply requested, as was her right, the full raw EML file of the email, including all header metadata. For authentication purposes, their lawyer, too ignorant to understand the request, complied. He forwarded the original file. For Leah, this was like being handed a signed confession. And, "Gotcha," she murmured, her eyes scanning the lines of code in the header file. "Here we are," she read from her screen. "Authentication results. SPF fail. DKM neutral. DMARC fail. This email is a forgery. It didn't come from your server. It came from a public, anonymous email host." She kept reading. "Received from, and here," she said, her finger tracing a line on her monitor. "Here is the originating IP address." She copied the string of numbers into an IP lookup tool. We both watched the screen. "Resolving," she said. "Registered to Comcast. Location a suburb 20 miles away." She ran another search. "And the address associated with this IP account is 144 Azalea Trace. Does that address mean anything to you?" "Emory." My heart hammered. "That's Diane Davis's address. That's my mother-in-law's house." Leah leaned back in her chair, a look of profound satisfaction on her face. "So, Diane Davis, or someone in her house, fabricated a fraudulent email, posing as you, to give Joe permission to invade your home." I pulled out my war room binder and flipped to the timeline. "Leah," I whispered, my finger on the timestamp. "The fake email was sent at 5:30 p.m. Look at this. The U-Haul rental contract. Owen signed it at 5:02 p.m. The picture snapped into perfect, chilling focus. "They rented the truck," I said, then drove straight to Diane's house. They realized they had no actual proof, so they manufactured it. They sat at her computer and created a fake email from a fake domain to cover their tracks, hours before they even packed the truck. "This is the aha moment," Leah said. "This is what wins the case." But the technology had more to tell us. The certified logs from ADT had arrived, and they were far more detailed than the simple user log on the app. I had been looking for a specific phrase, and I found it. The log entry at 8:55 a.m. did not just say keypad mismatch. It read, "Keypad mismatch," followed by event tamper, code brute force alert. I called my legal liaison at ADT. "What does brute force alert mean?" "Ma'am, that's a specific security feature," the man explained, his voice professional. "The system registers mismatch for a wrong code. It registers tamper when the panel detects more than 10 failed entries in under 60 seconds. It's not a mistake. It's a panic. It assumes someone is at the panel trying to guess their way in before the siren goes off. It is an act of deliberate, frantic aggression against the system." So Owen, trapped by the countdown, had not just tried Joe's code. He had stood there, smashing the panel with random numbers, trying to get in, trying to beat the clock. It was proof of his panic, his intent. Then, there were the cameras. I had rewatched the footage so many times it was burned into my memory. But Leah, with fresh eyes, saw something I had missed. "Go back," she said, as we reviewed the footage from the driveway camera. "Right before they get out of the car. There." I rewound. Owen gets out of his sedan, but before he walks to the side door, he looks directly up at the driveway camera. He hesitates. Then he walks towards the camera, his hand going into his pocket. His arm comes up, and the feed goes black. Just static. "He covered it," I breathed. "He knew it was there, and he covered the lens." "What time was that?" Leah asked. I checked the timestamp, 8:53 a.m., and the side door duplicate key alert, 8:54 a.m. "So," Leah said, "he made a conscious effort to disable the security camera before he committed the trespass. That, Emory, is definitive proof of intent. He knew he was doing something illegal." but the story got better. Now, Laya said. Fast forward to after the police arrive. When they're on the lawn. I skipped ahead 30 minutes. The police are there. Grace is weeping. And the driveway camera. It's on. The feed is clear. He took it off, I said, confused. Exactly, Laya said, hitting the table. He panicked. He knew the police would see a blacked-out camera as evidence of concealment. So while they were all distracted by the siren, he must have snuck back and removed the tape, trying to cover up his first act of concealment. It's beautiful. It's consciousness of guilt. Twice over. The evidence was now a cascade. Laya's paralegal had cross-referenced the police body cam log with the phone records we had subpoenaed from Grace. The results were devastating. The police body cam showed the officer handing Grace the official trespass warning at 9:05 a.m. Her phone log, now in our possession, showed her actions in the minutes that followed. At 9:06 a.m., she called Joe. A 30-second call, likely screaming. At 9:07 a.m., she called Diane. A 1-minute call. At 9:09 a.m., she Googled, "Can I sue for police harassment?" And at 9:12 a.m., she dialed my number. The call where she demanded $10,000. This is the chain of causation, Laya explained, drawing lines on her whiteboard. This is not a random, frivolous lawsuit threat. This is a direct causal link. She was caught. She was served with a criminal warning. She failed to get help from Joe or Diane, and her immediate next step was to call you and attempt to extort $10,000 in exchange for dropping the humiliation charge. She was trying to turn her crime into a payday, and she did it 3 minutes after she was caught. We had it all. The U-Haul contract, signed by Owen, paid for by Diane, for a one-way trip to my address, the HOA affidavit, confirming they had violated community bylaws by failing to register their move-in, and now, the fake email from Diane's IP address. Laya stood in front of her whiteboard, which now looked like a scene from a detective movie. She taped the final pieces of paper to it. Here is the matrix. Emery, she said. One motive. She taped up the eviction notice and Owen's $30,000 debt record. They were financially destitute. 2, conspiracy. She taped up Diane's handwritten agreement, Joe's "I'll handle her" email, and the header from the fraudulent email. They planned it. 3, the act. She taped up the U-Haul contract and the ADT log, duplicate key unlock. They executed it. 4, concealment. She taped up the screenshot of Owen covering the camera and the keypad tamper alert log. They knew it was a crime, and they tried to hide it. 5, extortion. She taped up the call log, showing the 9:12 a.m. call and the certified transcript, $10,000. When they were caught, they tried to profit from it. She stepped back. It is the most perfect, multi-layered case of bad faith I have ever seen. They have no defense, not one. Laya's team spent the next week compiling this matrix into an irrefutable, 50-page PowerPoint presentation. It was organized by exhibit, cross-referenced by date and time, with annotated call-outs for the U-Haul contract, the ADT log, the phone records, the fraudulent email header, and the audio file of Grace's demand. It was a legal work of art. "We're ready," Laya said. "We could walk into court with this tomorrow and get a summary judgment, but we give them one last chance to surrender." She drafted the final settlement offer. It was not a negotiation. It was terms of surrender. It demanded 3 things. 1, they would sign a full, written, notarized confession and apology, the text of which Laya had already written, admitting to the trespass, the fraudulent email, and the extortion. 2, they would pay for all of my legal fees, the locksmith's costs, and the cost of the ADT upgrade, which now totaled over $20,000. 3, they would consent to a permanent, lifetime restraining order for all parties. "They have 48 hours to accept," Laya said, "or we file this civil suit, and I am personally walking this entire binder over to the district attorney's office. I will demand they pursue criminal charges for forgery, wire fraud, and extortion. They can choose, pay, or prison." She sent the offer, We waited. The call came 47 hours later. Their lawyer, the bottom feeder, called Leah. I was on the speakerphone, listening. He did not sound like a man ready to negotiate. He was blustering. "Ms. Sharifi," he said, his voice dripping with false bravado. "My clients, Grace and Owen, will not be intimidated by your client's corporate tactics. They reject your outrageous and insulting offer. This is, and has always been, a family matter." I heard Leah take a slow, deep breath. He continued, "My clients stand by their story. They were invited. Your client is a cold, vindictive woman who is twisting a simple misunderstanding into a federal case. We are confident that any judge, any human being, will see this for what it is, a desperate attempt by a woman to punish her husband's loving family. My clients believe the court will side with family. We will see you at the deposition." He hung up. The silence in Leah's office was heavy. She looked at me. "They refused. They think family is a legal defense," I said. I felt a strange, cold calm. They were truly, irredeemably stupid. They had looked at the bomb Leah had built, and they had decided to light the fuse. "They've closed the last door," I said. "They've made their choice." "Yes, they have," Leah said. She picked up her phone and buzzed her assistant. "Sarah, clear my calendar for the next 2 weeks, and get me the court clerk. We're setting a date." Their lawyer, the one Joe was paying for, was a man named Art Keller. He was exactly the kind of lawyer you hire when you think bluster is a legal strategy. He was cheap, loud, and as Leah had gleefully discovered, had been sanctioned twice for filing frivolous motions. His first official response to our civil complaint was a motion to dismiss, based on the laughable argument that familial invitation negated all claims of trespass. Leah, in response, filed our motion for a protective order, attaching the midnight threats and Diane's text as Exhibit A. She also filed our full civil complaint, a 200-page document that landed on Keller's desk with the force of a bomb. The war of paper had begun. Keller was a volume shooter. He sent a flurry of motions, trying to bury us. Leah, a precision sniper, dismantled them one by one. She filed a subpoena with Comcast, the internet service provider for Diane's address. She did not just want the IP address, she wanted a sworn affidavit from their director of records, attesting that the IP address associated with the fraudulent Emory Davis NorthstarLedgers.com email was registered to and active at Diane Davis's billing address at the exact timestamp of the email's creation. The affidavit arrived. It was ironclad. The email was a forgery, and we had the receipt. Next, the police body cam footage was released to us. Leah and I watched it in her office on a massive screen. It was even more damning than we had hoped. The officer, a tall, patient man, was speaking to Grace, who was weeping hysterically on my front lawn. "But you don't understand," she wailed. "Joe let us in, his wife, Emory. She's not well. She's paranoid. Joe is her husband. He gave us permission." The officer, unmoved, continued writing the citation. "Ma'am, do you have that permission in writing? A text message, an email from the homeowner." Grace's face froze. "No, but..." "Joe is the husband. It's his house, too. His permission is all we need." "Ma'am," the officer said, his voice flat, "the preliminary property search shows the home is in the name of Emory Davis only. Your permission is from a party that is not the legal owner. That is why this is a criminal trespass." Leah paused the video. "And that," she said, "is Art Keller's entire defense, invalidated by a patrol officer on day 1. They are going to argue spousal privilege. They are going to argue that Joe, as my husband, had the authority to act as my agent." "But he didn't," I said. "We know that," Leah said. "But they are going to put Joe on the stand and have him testify that you gave him verbal permission. They need him to commit perjury to have any case at all." As if summoned, an email from Keller arrived. He was formally subpoenaing Joe Davis as his primary witness for the defense. "They've done it," I whispered. They are going to force him to lie. Yes, they are, Leah said, her eyes gleaming. And we are going to make him pay for it. Leah did not contact Joe. She contacted his divorce lawyer. The email she sent was a masterpiece of professional courtesy and legal threat. Subject, Professional Advisory re People vs. Davis, Mr. Franklin. It has come to our attention that your client, Mr. Joseph Davis, has been subpoenaed by the defense in the related civil matter of Davis versus Davis et al. We are aware that he will be asked to testify regarding any verbal permission he may have received from our client. Ms. Emery Davis, as a professional courtesy, I am attaching 2 exhibits from our pretrial filings. Exhibit A is Mr. Davis's email to Grace last name, timed at 11 p.m., the night before the intrusion, in which he states, "I'll handle her." This email demonstrates he was fully aware Ms. Davis had not given permission and that he intended to handle her after the fact. Exhibit B is the certified ISP affidavit, tracing the fraudulent permission email to his mother's home IP address, proving a conspiracy to manufacture permission where none existed. Should your client, Mr. Davis, choose to testify under oath that he received verbal permission from Ms. Davis, he will be committing felony perjury. We would, of course, be obligated to introduce this evidence and pursue a criminal referral immediately. As Mr. Davis is already a named co-conspirator in our civil suit, we trust you will advise him on the significant legal jeopardy he faces. Regards, Leah Sharifi, Joe's lawyer, a much smarter man than Art Keller, must have understood his client was being marched into a trap. The deposition was set for the following week. It was not a trial, but a pre-trial examination under oath. We sat in a sterile conference room, me, Leah, Art Keller, and Joe, flanked by his very expensive, very nervous divorce lawyer. Leah was relentless. She established the facts. The house was mine. Joe knew it was mine. "Mr. Davis," she said, her voice calm, "when you told your brother and sister-in-law they could crash at my client's house, did you have written permission from Ms. Davis?" "No," Joe mumbled. "Did you have verbal permission from Ms. Davis?" Joe's lawyer jumped in. "Objection vague. Privileged communication." Leah just smiled. "Mr. Davis, at any time on the day of the intrusion, or in the week prior, did you have a conversation with Emery Davis in which she said the words, 'Grace and Owen are welcome to move into my house'?" Joe looked at his lawyer. He was sweating. He was trapped. If he said yes, Leah would produce the emails, and he would go to jail for perjury. If he said no, his family's entire defense would be destroyed. His lawyer leaned over and whispered in his ear. Joe looked up, his face pale, his voice a dry croak. "On the advice of counsel, I assert my Fifth Amendment privilege against self-incrimination." Art Keller, the cheap lawyer, actually dropped his pen. It clattered on the table. "What?" Keller said, looking at Joe's lawyer. "He can't do that." "He just did," Leah said, her voice like silk. "He has just testified, under oath, that answering the question of whether he had my client's permission would incriminate him in a crime. I think we're done here." The deposition was over. Joe's wavering was not silence. It was a public admission of his own guilt. Their central witness had just become our best piece of evidence. Art Keller was in freefall. He knew his case was dead. The family argument was all he had left, and that was when the final, desperate psychological ploys began. The first came from Diane. She had been silent since the litigation hold. Stewing in her own legal exposure, she broke the no-contact order and sent me a text message directly. "Emery, this has gone too far. You have ruined your husband. You have ruined this family. What is it you want? Money. I will pay your lawyer's fees. I will pay for the new locks. Whatever that shark Leah is charging you, I will pay it. Just make this stop." She was trying to buy me off. She was trying to settle the cost of the lawsuit, without admitting to the crime. I took a screenshot. I forwarded it to Leah with one-word log. Leah replied to Art Keller. "Mr. Keller, Your client Diane Davis has once again violated the cease and desist order. This attempted financial settlement, which contains no admission of wrongdoing, is rejected. Any further direct contact with my client will result in an immediate motion for sanctions and criminal harassment charges. The last attempt came 3 days before the trial date. It was an email, sent directly to my personal account, bypassing Leah. It was from Grace. It was not angry. It was not threatening. It was, in its own way, far more insidious. Emery, I am so sorry. I know this has all been a terrible misunderstanding, and I am sorry for my part in it. I have been thinking a lot, and I just want this to be over. I was just trying to do what was best for my family. I was desperate. Owen was going to be on the street. I never meant to cause this much trouble. I never would have done it if I thought it would lead to this. Can't you find it in your heart to forgive us? We are family. Please, just, please. I stared at the message for a long time. She sounded broken. She sounded, for the first time, human. It was a plea for mercy. Can't you find it in your heart to forgive us? I thought of my therapist. I thought of the midnight threats. I thought of the tremor in my hand. I looked closer at the email. I'm sorry for my part in it. If I thought it would lead to this, a terrible misunderstanding. Leah's voice echoed in my head. It contains no admission of fact. She was not admitting to the trespass. She was not admitting to the U-Haul. She was not admitting to the lies, the fake email, or the extortion. She was apologizing that I had reacted this way. She was sorry she got caught. I forwarded the email to Leah. Leah's final response to Art Keller was sent within the hour. Mr. Keller, my client has received Ms. last name's email. We acknowledge her apology for the misunderstanding. However, as this email contains no admission of fact regarding the criminal trespass, the conspiracy, the fraudulent email, or the attempted extortion, it holds no legal value as a settlement offer. We will not be responding. We will see you in court. The time for negotiation was over. All pretrial motions were complete. Leah had won every single one. The judge had ruled that the fraudulent email was admissible. The extortion tape was admissible. The body cam footage was admissible. Joe's Fifth Amendment plea was admissible. They had nothing. We had everything. The night before the trial, I slept for 8 solid hours. I woke with the sun. I did not feel anxious. I did not feel angry. I felt calm. I dressed in a dark navy suit, a crisp white blouse. I pulled my hair back into a severe, immaculate bun. I looked like what I was a chief financial officer about to conduct a final, brutal audit. I had my war room binder, but it was now one of 3, the complete, annotated, exhibit-by-exhibit case file. Leah had them in a professional, wheeled valise. I met her on the steps of the county courthouse. The air was cold, sharp. "Ready?" she asked. "I've had the numbers prepared for weeks," I said. I looked at my reflection in the polished granite. I saw a woman who was not a wife, not a daughter-in-law, not a victim. I was the plaintiff, and I was about to present my findings. I walked into the courthouse, the valise of documents rolling quietly, faithfully, behind me. My heart was as still and as cold as the marble floor. The courtroom was a sterile box of polished wood and beige tile, smelling faintly of old paper and industrial cleaner. We sat at the plaintiff's table. Leah and I, our 3-ring binders were stacked neatly in front of us, exhibits tabbed in primary colors. Across the aisle, their table was a mess. Art Keller, their lawyer, had piles of disorganized papers. Grace, Owen, Diane, and Joe were huddled together. A miserable tableau of cheap suits and simmering resentment. Joe refused to look at me. He just stared at his hands, his knuckles white. Mr. Keller, the judge, a formidable woman named Alani Santos, said, "You may begin." Keller stood. He was all bluster, a man playing a role. He paced in the small space, his voice booming with manufactured righteousness. "Your Honor, this is a tragedy. This is a case about the breakdown of the American family. This isn't about contracts or cameras. It's about a simple act of goodwill. My clients, Grace and Owen, were destitute. Their family, their loving family, did what any of us would do. They offered a helping hand. He gestured toward Joe. A husband, acting in good faith, told his family, "We have room. Come, be safe." "And for this," he said, his voice dropping to a theatrical whisper as he pointed at me, "for this act of kindness, he is being sued. His family is being dragged through the mud. His wife, a woman of means, a woman with a 5-bedroom, empty house, decided to call the police instead of opening her heart." He paced back. "This is not a legal matter, Your Honor. This is a family spat, twisted by a vindictive spouse into a corporate lawsuit. We ask you to see this for what it is, a simple misunderstanding, an act of charity, and to dismiss this case." He sat down, looking satisfied. Laya stood. She was perfectly still. She walked to the podium and placed a single binder on it. She looked at the judge, her voice clear, calm, and utterly devoid of emotion. "Your Honor," she said, "Mr. Keller is correct about one thing. This is a case about family. It's about a family that conspired to commit fraud, forgery, and extortion." A gasp came from Diane. Keller shouted, "Objection." "Overruled," the judge said, her eyes on Laya. "That is quite an accusation. Counsel, proceed." Laya nodded, and the large monitor on the wall lit up. "We will not be arguing about feelings. We will present an immutable timeline of facts. Slide 1, please." The screen showed my warranty deed. Exhibit A, the deed to the property at 418 Willow Creek. As you can see, the sole owner is Emery Davis, a single woman, acquired prior to her marriage. There is no co-owner. There is no spousal rider. Joe Davis has no legal authority over this asset. This is the foundation. Click the next slide. Exhibit B, the certified log from ADT Security, time-stamped on the day of the intrusion. At 8:54 a.m., the side door was unlocked with duplicate key. At 8:55 a.m., keypad mismatch. At 8:56 a.m., security phrase mismatch. And at 8:56 a.m., police notified. This was not an invited guest forgetting a code. This was a forced entry attempt. Click the next slide. Exhibit C, police body cam footage. Laya played the video. The courtroom filled with the sound of Grace, hysterical on my lawn. "Joe let us in," her voice shrieked. "It's his house too. He gave us permission." Then, the officer's flat voice. "Ma'am, the preliminary property search shows the home is in the name of Emery Davis only. Do you have any written permission from the homeowner?" Grace, on the video, was silent. Laya paused the frame on Grace's shocked, wet face. "She had no proof, Your Honor, because no permission existed." Click the next slide. "And that, Your Honor, is when the defendants manufactured it." Exhibit D. This is an email the defense provided, claiming it was from my client, granting permission. "But this," Laya's voice hardened, "is the header file. The authentication failed. And this," she clicked again, "is the originating IP address. And this," she clicked a final time, "is the sworn affidavit from the Internet Service Provider, confirming that IP address is registered to the home of Diane Davis. This fraudulent email was created at Diane Davis's house, 30 minutes after the U-Haul van was rented." Diane let out a small, strangled noise. The judge's eyes, cold and assessing, settled on her for a long moment. Click the next slide. Exhibit E, footage from the driveway camera. At 8:53 a.m., 1 minute before the break-in, you will see the defendant, Owen, look directly at the camera, walk over, and cover the lens with tape. Laya played the clip. Owen's hand filled the screen, and the feed went to static. This is not the action of an invited guest. This is the action of a man who knows he is committing a crime and is attempting to conceal the evidence. Laya turned from the monitor and looked at Joe. "I called Mr. Joe Davis to the stand. His testimony was brief," She looked at the judge. Your Honor, when asked under oath at his deposition if he had received verbal permission from me, Mr. Davis asserted his Fifth Amendment privilege against self-incrimination, and when I asked him here today, did you have authorization from Emory Davis, his answer, under oath, was, no. Joe sank lower in his chair, his face a mask of gray defeat. Finally, Your Honor, Laya said, we addressed the events after the defendants were caught, after they were served with a no trespass order. She held up a document. Exhibit F, the certified transcript of a call placed by Grace to my client at 9:12 a.m. I read from line 4. Laya's voice filled the room. $10,000 for the humiliation and the pain you caused, and you call off the cops, and you let us move in. The judge, who had been listening with a neutral expression, physically recoiled. Her head snapped up, and she stared at Grace. Her voice was sharp. Counsel, did you say $10,000? I did, Your Honor, Laya said. The defense was not seeking charity. The defense was attempting to profit from their crime. This was extortion. And to be clear, Laya said, we have the affidavit from the Homeowners Association, confirming no move-in was ever registered, a direct violation of community bylaws. They were attempting to move in by stealth. Laya closed her binder. She walked back to the podium. Mr. Keller told you this was a case about family goodwill. The evidence shows this was a case about conspiracy. This was a hostile, premeditated occupation, planned for weeks. The defendants arrived with a U-Haul. They arrived with a fraudulent, forged email. They disabled the security system. And when they were caught, they attempted to extort my client for $10,000. They did not come for help. They came to create a fait accompli to seize a room, to seize a floor, to establish residency, believing my client would be too embarrassed or too nice to have them forcibly removed. They believed the word family was a legal shield that would protect them from the consequences of their crimes. We asked the court to find, based on the overwhelming evidence they themselves provided, that it is not. Laya sat down. The silence in the courtroom was absolute. The judge looked at the defense table, her expression one of utter, cold contempt. She did not take a recess. She did not need to deliberate. She removed her glasses. I have been on this bench for 17 years, Judge Santos began, her voice quiet but carrying to every corner of the room. I have never seen such a brazen, coordinated, and frankly, idiotic attempt to defraud a property owner. Mr. Keller, your argument that family is a defense for criminal trespass is an insult to this court's intelligence. She looked directly at Grace and Owen. You are found liable for criminal trespass. Your claim of goodwill is dismissed. She then looked at the whole table. A permanent civil restraining order is hereby granted. Effective immediately, Grace Davis, Owen Davis, Diane Davis, and Joseph Davis will not come within 500 yards of Emory Davis or her property at 418 Willow Creek. Any violation will result in your immediate arrest. Furthermore, the defendants will, jointly and severally, reimburse the plaintiff for all legal fees, all court costs, all locksmith fees, and all security upgrade costs, the total sum of which I will approve upon Laya's submission. She paused, and her gaze, now utterly glacial, landed on Diane. And finally, regarding Exhibit D, the fraudulent email, I find this act of forgery, this deliberate attempt to manufacture evidence and commit fraud upon the court, to be so egregious that I am, at this moment, formally referring this entire matter to the District Attorney's Office. I am issuing a directive for a criminal investigation into conspiracy, wire fraud, and felony perjury against all named parties. A sound, a low, keening wail, escaped from Grace. Her eyes rolled back, and she slumped forward onto the table. Unconscious, Owen, white as a sheet, just stared at her. Diane was holding her chest, her mouth open, gasping. Joe just looked down at the table, his face utterly blank. A man who had lost everything and was only just now realizing it. I did not look at them. I did not smile. I did not feel a rush of victory. I felt balanced. The audit was complete. The final entry was logged. I reached for my binder. I closed the cover. The click of the 3 rings snapping shut was the only sound in the room. The judge raised her gavel. "This court is adjourned." She brought it down. Bang. The sound was sharp, final. It cut through the air, echoing off the wooden walls. It was the sound I had been waiting for. It was the sound of the ADT alarm from that first day, the one that had warned me of the breach. But this was not a warning. It was a conclusion. It was the sound of my fortress, its gate now barred, its walls secure, and its perimeter finally, completely, silent. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I truly appreciate you being here. Please comment below and let me know where in the world you are listening from. I would love to connect and hear your thoughts. If you enjoyed this, please subscribe to Maya Revenge Stories, like this video, and give it a little extra support by hitting that hype button so this story can be heard by more people.